right, welcome everyone. Welcome. We are going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to Election 2020, ensuring that you are vote ready. As we're doing our introductions, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love for you to share your name, pronouns, location, and also feel free to drop in your LinkedIn so you can make some new contacts. Also, if you feel like it, feel free to turn your video on if you're comfortable and able to. We do love seeing your faces. So we are gonna do a lot in the next hour in this workshop, but I wanted to give us a quick overview of our agenda. So we are gonna be starting with introductions and some context setting, and then really diving into the heart of today's conversation, which is making sure that you are hashtag vote ready. And of course we will end it up with any with Q&A, so please feel free to use the chat throughout today's event to chat in your questions. Julia, my colleague, will be collecting them, and we will be answering those questions at the end, so please feel free to use that. Last up, we will also be recording today's event, and we will share that recording with you and make it available to you in an email after today's event. So don't worry if you miss something, you will get a recording of this. And just some quick Zoom logistics. So many of you probably know how to use Zoom really well by now, but in case you don't, I just want to make sure folks know how to see their webcam and your mute unmute button. Currently you're all muted, but later during Q&A, if you have a question, we'll unmute you and you'll get a notification to confirm that you're happy to be unmuted. We also encourage you to use speaker view during today's event so you can kind of get the full experience. And again, feel free to chat your questions. But let's dive into introductions. So I'm happy to introduce myself first. Hi everyone, my name is Christy Stanker and I'm a senior program manager at NetImpact. I've been with NetImpact the last 4 years. And I'm so excited to be on today's call because I am deeply passionate about civic engagement, and it really has been a big part of my career. I've previously managed campaigns, worked for elected officials, and as you can see here, I'm an election day get out the vote stunt driver. This is me in 2010, getting on election day, truly getting out the vote on UC Berkeley's campus. So I will be one of your facilitators today. And our second facilitator is Chris, and I will let him introduce himself.
Everybody, my name is Christopher. I work at RFK Human Rights, where I manage a program, college-based program where we work to build the power of young people at the ballot box and on campuses. I used to work on the Hill, worked at HHS for a little bit, not in this administration, previous one. And I'm in a different room right now, but as we've been planning this webinar, I've been in my bedroom, which is currently getting redone with a whole bunch of wallpaper. It looks crazy. I'm so excited to be here to join you all and talk a little bit about how we can get out the vote and talk more deeply about some of the strategies folks are using.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just a little bit about the two organizations who are convening us here today. So as I mentioned, I work for NetImpact. NetImpact is a nonprofit, and our mission is to inspire and equip the next generation to build a more just and sustainable world. We have over 400 chapters worldwide who do incredible things, including they consult with nonprofits, they host hackathons and case study competitions, they work on community impact projects. Our chapters are pretty incredible, and we're going to drop a link in the chat right now to look up if there's a chapter in your area. If you're not already involved, we would love for you to get involved with a NetImpact chapter. And our second convener is RFK Human Rights. And Chris, I'll let you introduce your organization.
Yes, absolutely. So RFK Human Rights is a 50-year-old organization. We've been around for a while. We work to expand human rights all across the globe. We do a lot here in the U.S. as well. And as I mentioned previously, we just launched a college-based program where we're building chapters and trying to get young people to create change on campuses. And so I'd be happy to share a link where folks can find out more information about how you could become a part of a chapter or start a chapter on your campus. We do a lot of amazing work. It's a weird time right now because we're all trying to navigate the pandemic and just everything that's getting thrown at us. But so a lot of work that we have to do even after election day, and not just around voting, but on all the issues that are important to us. And so yeah, just excited to be able to work with Net Impact folks, and hopefully some of y'all be interested in coming and working with us as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, we'll make sure to share that link as well. Also in the follow-up email, the Young Leaders Program is really awesome. But moving on to really why we're here today. So you've already heard me say, like, I care a lot about civic engagement, and that's really because our votes matter. Gen Z and millennials, we are representing 37% of the electorate this year, which is a huge amount. That is a huge amount to change the outcome of any election. But when you actually look at it, only about a third of Gen Z and millennials actually voted in 2018. And I really think, like, we can do better. We can show up more. We can show up to vote because there is so much at stake in this election. So during today's event, we're here to help prepare you, educate you, and mobilize you to participate in this year's election, but also to help you mobilize your peers. I do want to say voting is certainly not the only way to be civically engaged, but it is a really important lever. So we hope that your journey with civic engagement also continues beyond voting. But really, we are curious and we want to know about why you're here. So we're going to shoot you into breakout rooms for the next 5 minutes. We would love for you to introduce yourself to your fellow attendees, and share why you want or why you're interested in getting engaged in this election. And we'll bring you back after 5 minutes. So those breakout rooms will be starting momentarily. Okay, see you all in 5 minutes. Hi. Oh, have folks been able to hear me the past couple minutes? Oh, okay. Sorry. So sorry about that. It seems like there was a mix up with our tech, but that's totally fine. So what I was saying is we are moving into voter registration. So I'm happy to go back. The eligibility requirements are really that you're a US citizen, that you are a resident of the state that you're in, and that you're 18 years or old before election day. So now we actually want you to check your registration status. Even if you think that you're 100% registered to vote, it is really important to actually double check this because some states do purge voter rolls. So you can use your camera on the QR code, and we'll also be dropping the link to this in the chat. So I'll just give everyone about 2 minutes to check their registration status. We're also going to start a poll because we would love to see how many folks are registered. So I'll give folks about 2 minutes to check your status. And I am actually going to check my status as well and make sure. And I am registered to vote. Okay, we'll give folks about 1 more minute to check your registration. Again, truly, even if you think you don't know how many people I've talked to who have been like, yeah, 100% I'm registered, and then I've looked it up with them and then they're not, or they're not registered at the actual address that they want to be registered at. So this is a really important step. Okay, so we are gonna close that poll. So it looks like everyone who responded is registered to vote, which is really great. But in case you're not, I just wanna give you a couple of more tips. And not only if you're not registered to vote, these are really important tips and information that you can bring to your peers and your family to also make sure that they are registered to vote. So if you did for some reason find out that you're not registered to vote, I would strongly encourage you to continue the instructions through that link that we just shared you to finish your registration and do it as soon as possible. Because as you can see in this graphic, some of our states have already passed their voter registration deadlines, and other states' deadlines are coming up really, really soon. So it's really important to check in with your peers and your families if you are registered to vote, to also make sure that they're registered before your state's upcoming deadline. Now, some common mistakes when you're registering to vote. And let me say, I have registered literally probably like dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of people to vote over the course of me being involved in civic engagement. And these are really some of the most common mistakes that I've seen when you are filling out a voter registration form. And again, if you're talking to your peers or your families who aren't registered, you can actually help them go through this. So one of the most common mistakes is that you're not actually 18. The second is that your signature on your registration has to match your ID. That is really, really important. Next is that you don't mess up the dates. So voter registration forms ask for your birthday. They also ask for today's date, and it's really easy to mess those up, and truly messing those up could be enough to reject your application to be a voter. Make sure that you add all those hyphens and special characters. And then your address. So this is a really important one. think about where you want to register to vote. That is the community in which you'll be voting. That doesn't necessarily have to be where you would want your mailing address. So perhaps you're a college student and you want to register to vote in your university town, but because of COVID, you're living at home for this semester. You can certainly put your residential address as your college town, but your mailing address as your family home, and that's where you would get your ballot. And then last up, this is probably the most common mistake that I saw on people's registrations when I was helping them, is that folks who want to register as an independent, so not be affiliated with any party, they choose the American Independent Party on their registration. That, in fact, is a political party. And if you want to join that party, go for it. But if you actually just want to say, I'm not affiliated with any political party on my registration, you want to choose no party preference. That's what that means. So some college student FAQ. So I already kind of mentioned this just a bit previously, but the big takeaway here for college students during COVID is that you should register to vote wherever you consider home. So that can include your campus address, even if you're not physically present there right now due to COVID-19. But of course, if you have any more questions specifically about voter registration, please plop them in the chat, and we will be happy to answer those at the end of today's workshop. So moving into our next section, we want to shift to the second part of really getting you prepared to be civically engaged this election day. And that is really understanding who and what you're voting on. Because there is a lot more on your ballot than the president. That's not to say that the president isn't important, that is an important race to vote in, but there are so many other races that are happening this year that you want to educate yourself on. So what's on the ballot? We have every single seat in the House of Representatives is up for vote. 35 Senate seats are up. 11 governors are up for a vote. We have over 128 statewide ballot measures across 32 states, and over 300 state Supreme Court seats are up as well. So this is just a sampling of kind of all of those different people and initiatives that you're going to be asked to vote on. So it's really important to get down to those details and educate yourself. So what you're looking at right now is a sample ballot from Oklahoma. I would say this is pretty standard in my experience. You can see it's not just, president or governor, it's all of these other races. So how do you actually get educated on your ballot? How do you find out the information that you need to make the choice for the people or the propositions to vote for that align with your values? I would say the most important thing is to find places with accurate, nonpartisan information. And the ones you're seeing here are 3 of my favorites. So I promise I'm not being paid to say any of this for any of these companies, but really these are trusted sources that you can go to for nonpartisan information. We have Ballot Ready, which is a project of the National Science Foundation. They have great information on federal, state, and local races. You can actually make an account and save who you want to vote for. It's a really incredible and powerful tool. There's also vote411.org, which is part of the League of Women Voters. They often have federal and state and some local information for you to look up. And then lastly is Know Your Vote. Know Your Vote focuses both on issues and candidates. So it's a little different than the other 2 because you can actually look up by issue. So if the issue that you as a voter care about the most is climate change, you can actually go to Know Your Vote and search for the people on your ballot and see what their position is on that issue that is important to you. Of course, these are only suggestions. You should feel free to find whatever sources of information that you trust to help guide your process of making sure that you're educated to vote. Now, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, Christy, you've just told me there are so many things I need to research, that I need to do. I'm feeling overwhelmed. What can I do? And what I say is that this doesn't have to all be on you. And one of the best tactics that you can use to help break up this work is hosting a ballot party. So what that means is you get together a couple of your friends, maybe some of your family, and you assign each person a candidate or candidates or ballot measures to research. And then you can have, a virtual Zoom party, all come together and actually talk through, who are the people running for my state assembly race? Who are the people running for the House of Representatives? And you can share that information that you've learned and really break up that work. Of course, you and your friends and family don't have to vote the same way, even when you're having this conversation, but it's a way for all of you to get educated together. So now I want to pass it over to Chris, because we are moving into making sure that you actually know not only what is on your ballot, but that you actually understand where and how to vote. So Chris, I don't know if you want to intro this video before I play it.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Chrissy. Good. So this is good stuff. All of this is really good. And I know that a lot of in the breakout room, I was talking to some wonderful people. I know that probably a lot of us here are super plugged in and tuned in, but I know we're all having these conversations with everybody right now. And some of this information is breezing by folks. I was talking to some of the people in the breakout room about some of the young people. I've been trying to text all the young people in my program to ask them, like, what's going on? Like, have you registered? Have you done what you needed to do? And I've been shook at the number of people that have been like, I'm planning on it, but like I haven't got to it yet. And then some folks I was talking to in Tennessee, Texas yesterday, man, them deadlines passed. And, just plans, like, folks have not necessarily where they were in the springtime or last year when they were voting, and now they're living somewhere different. And so maybe they were registered on campus, but they're not on campus no more. And really, you have to remind people, like, especially young people, a lot of times you got to really look at this stuff. And I feel so, so bad for folks who are like, I have a little bit of time, because what is time right now? I mean, everything is going by so weird. And so you might, be shook that we're even, 30 days or less than 30 days. I don't even know how. We're close to the election, right? So all of this stuff is really important. We worked with a number of young people here at RFK to put together a cute video. We wanted to say, okay, we see a lot of election content right now. A lot of people are doing things online. But I think what's really unique about the program that we have at RFK is it's a very diverse program, and we have a lot of queer folks. We were listening to some students in our program who were trans, who had talked about why they had never voted before. And one of the girls told us, well, she just never seen somebody who looks like her from her community talk about why voting was important. And I just thought that was such a real thing. I mean, if we think about all the information we get and all the people who are talking all the time, it tends to be people who are, white cis folks who are constantly talking about the issues, constantly talking about why we need to be involved. Clearly, it affects all of us. So we said, let's put together something that, is fun and creative, and hopefully when folks see it, it can kind of stick into their minds. And we knew that a lot of people were going to be voting absentee for the very first time. So we put together this cute PSA. We're going to play it now. I hope you all enjoy it and share it. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello. What's up, girl? How you feeling? Hey, babies. Hey, girlies. I literally just got off the phone with my mother and we had a whole argument. I'm so annoyed. You know you stay arguing with her. First, she was talking about voting and she was talking about meeting the deadlines and making sure that I'm registered to vote and everything. I'm trying to tell her there's mad stuff going on in the ballroom scene. Like, I can't focus on this. She's trying to say the girls will get killed for even walking down the street and being stopped by cops and everything, all types of things like that. Voting is very important, especially this year's election. I really agree. Like, I understand too. I just really need to, find some time to really mail in my ballot.
Hey, Barbie. Girl, if you don't get up.
Who are you? My dream?
Enough with the Q&A questions, Barbie. Listen up. We don't have a lot of time. we need to make sure that you are registered to vote. And if you are voting by mail, the deadline for that registration could be coming up. So we need to get on top of that. We can go together.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So step one, check your voter registration status and make sure that you are registered to vote. You can do this by visiting vote.org. Remember, deadlines for registration vary from state to state. The next thing to do is plan on how you're going to vote, in person or absentee. And if you plan on voting in person, don't be afraid to check because your state can offer early voting prior to election day. Vote.org will definitely let you know if you are in one of the 34 states that can claim coronavirus as a reason to voting by mail.
I got this. I'm going back to that.
Girl, cut me off again. To the next part. Or you could be one of the 500,000 voters who had their mail-in ballots disqualified in the most recent election. We don't want that. Guys, fill in the ovals. You fill in those ovals. You don't put no X's, no scribble scrabbles. You fill in the oval. The second thing is make sure that you are using your official signature. And the official signature goes on the outer envelope, not the ballot. You do not want to get disqualified, so follow that. Finally, make sure your ballot gets to the people that are actually going to count it. Because I would hate for you to do all that work and it's not counted for. Some jurisdictions also offer ballot drop-off locations, such as certain designated drop boxes, or precinct, or polling places. Whatever it is, make sure that you secure your vote. And don't forget to help a friend who helps a friend. Barbie. Now go vote.
Created by an all-black creative team. Kadar Small, Miles Lofton, Malaysia Mercer, aka Barbie, Ziggy Mac Johnson.
Hey, okay, that's so cute. I love it every time I see it. Um, Such a good thing to put together, and I think too super important for us to have messaging that is, you know, related to um, communities we're from, and that is from people who look like us and who speak like us. And I feel like that's one of the gaps I've certainly seen in this election cycle. In addition to just all the other crap, you know, that's going on, I feel like we haven't seen enough content that, you know, is helping really by Indigenous people of color, especially young people who are part of our communities, that's tailored towards them. And maybe we'll see more coming up. We got a little bit of time, but I think that, you know, that's definitely something that we have to think more deeply about whenever we're talking to people and we're trying to mobilize folks. So, all right, now let's talk about planning to vote. Okay, so there is a lot going on, as we keep saying, and I think, you know, when we're thinking more deeply about just all the information, you know, that's going on right now, it can just be so easy to miss some of these deadlines and not really understand what's going on. Really, they keep changing too. You know, I'm sure that you all have probably seen recent things that have happened in Texas and Houston in particular, where the governor came out and started removing number of ballot drop boxes we have in the state to only one per county. Harris County is bigger than all of Rhode Island, and there's 300 ballot drop-off locations in Rhode Island. Harris County is just Houston, Texas. So some of these policies are even changing, you know, as we're getting closer to election day, and they probably will continue to change. There's a number of different things that are being challenged right now in state courts. So I think having the plan to vote is really important, and that's going to be something that hopefully everybody is thinking about and paying attention to. We can go to the next slide. So maybe you're lucky enough to live in one of the states where you might get an automatic absentee ballot. So even if you get an automatic ballot, you need to make sure it's the correct ballot. I live in Brooklyn. We recently all received mail-in ballots, and they specifically are for people in the military. We've seen a lot of conflicting information in just a week since they were all mailed out to people. Certain folks saying, well, we can go ahead and use them. Certain folks saying we need to wait until we get the proper ballots. It's all a mess. So in thinking about, you know, how you're going to vote and thinking about if it's going to be absentee, is it going to be in person, maybe you're in one of the states where you're going to automatically get those ballots, you still want to make sure that you have the right ballots, and you want to make sure that, you know, you have everything you need if you're going to vote absentee. Okay, so let's go to the next part. Now, if you are gonna vote by mail, you still have to request a ballot. So a lot of young people, again, I think seeing a lot of information online right now. A lot of it is conflicting or it's changed. You have to really kind of tell people, okay, you need to probably have to request your ballot. Now, there are certain states where you can just say, I want a mail-in ballot because of the coronavirus. But living in the middle of a pandemic where you can catch it by being in crowds of people and where folks can breathe on each other, that's not enough in some states. Some states you have to have an additional excuse as well. Some states like I was talking to a young person in Tennessee yesterday. You have to be out of the country, serving in the military, or I be on some type of diplomatic mission in order to get an absentee ballot. Very strange rules. And so really you need to look up what it is in your state and see what's going on. You can go to vote.org. They have a lot of information about whether or not you're in one of these states where you have to have additional excuses. But in some of these states, these are the ones that are highlighted right here, which are really, really difficult. You're probably going to have to vote in person. And I know it's unfortunate and it sucks, but we also have another option so that you can maybe avoid some of these lines. And that is if your state offers early voting. I've only ever voted early. I've never went on election day. I like early voting because in Texas, if you early vote, you can pick whatever precinct you want to go to. So I could go to the one right by my university. Typically the one that was by my house, which is the one I had to go to on election day, was always packed, too many people. I don't like to stand in lines anyways. Definitely don't like to do it in the middle of a pandemic. So if you are in one of these states where you have to vote in person, hopefully you can go early and hopefully you can try to motivate people to do that as well. Now let's go look at, we're on this next part, yes, where we have these deadlines to request your mail-in ballot. Now these are really good deadlines. This is good information, but what I like to tell people is if you're gonna vote by mail, you need to request it now. We all have been seeing the mess that's been happening with USPS. We all know that mail is running slower. Even if you request your ballot, you might get the wrong ballot, just like folks in Brooklyn did. And so you might have to follow up and get another ballot. And there's not a lot of time right now. So, if you're talking to people and, you're trying to figure out what the voting situation is going to be like, ask folks if they can request that ballot like ASAP. So really, you need to make sure you're registered. You need to make sure that you have all the information you need to vote, and you need to go online and request that ballot as soon as possible. All right, let's go to the next slide. Perfect. Okay, mailing in your ballot. Now, if I'm going to be voting absentee for the first time, I'm waiting for my ballot to come in. I'm going to try to go and drop it off. I don't trust that it's just going to get picked up in the mail or that's going to get to where it needs to go. Unfortunately, I guess if you're living in Texas and maybe these policies will be challenged and changed by the time election day comes, who knows? You might only have access to one drop-off location, and that's kind of crazy. I feel like the drop-off boxes are probably more secure than sending it in the mail. There are some states where you can actually track to see where your ballot is in this process. So if you happen to live in one of those states, I actually think California might be one of them, but they have certain apps where you can see, where your ballot is in this process. That's not the case everywhere. So I always tell people you want to err on the side of caution. You want to request your ballot. You want to get it as soon as possible. When you get it, you've got to fill it out. Fill it out as soon as possible. Don't do like Barbie and get your ballot and then leave it around and then have to have your mom call you and remind you to send it in. You want to send it off as soon as possible, or go drop it off and make sure it's counted. In some places you can drop it off at your election official's office, but if you live in New York right now, all these offices are closed. So people are doing things virtually, or they're doing them all outside of one specific place. The other thing too you want to think about is that different states have different policies in terms of when your ballot has to be counted. And I know this is going to sound strange, but like in Florida, where we've had there's a lot of absentee ballots, been absentee for a long time. They have really good laws. They have some policy that allows for poll workers to start counting ballots as they come in. So if you're you're requesting a ballot and you get it and you fill it out and you send it in, it's probably already counted in Florida. If you're in a state like Tennessee, or I can't think of another state, but there's a couple of states where they've tried to do this. You actually have to wait until election day to even count all the mail-in ballots that have come into your office. So if you're an election official, can you imagine trying to count all the ballots that have, come in and try to make them, make sure that everybody's information is, the word is escaping me, but make sure that everybody has their vote counted and that, you know, their preferences are noted. Like on election day, I can't imagine what that's going to be like. It's probably going to be a mess. So your best bet is to just make sure that when you get it, you send it in as soon as possible. Go to the next slide. This is important. Okay, so I know that a lot of people have probably seen a bunch of information about all the stuff that happened during the primaries. And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to put this PSA together, because voting by mail is actually a very technical process. There's a number of reasons why your ballot could be disqualified. And I'm sure folks are going to be looking for any reason to just, you know, toss your ballot during this election cycle. So you want to make sure you follow all the rules. Like Ziggy said, if it says to fill in the ballot, fill in the oval, fill in the oval. Don't exit, don't check it, don't do no scribble scrabble. You got to fill it in. There's also things with signatures. You want to make sure that your signature on your ballot matches the same signature you use to register or the one on your ID. So lots of folks can, you know, use their grocery store signature or their credit card signature. It's not going to work. You want it to match. So if you can, you know, reference that, make sure it looks the exact same. There's also certain things, I think South Carolina, where you have to have a witness, and many other states as well, but where you have to have like someone to sign the ballot to witness that, you know, that you actually are a registered voter. And so there are even other steps that you have to kind of think about. So I have a roommate who's from South Carolina, and they're voting absentee. And we were talking about some of the processes they have to go through. And in fact, this was actually something that was being challenged up until like a week ago. So again, these policies could change, and your best bet is to try to visit, you know, your local election officials website, or try to look on vote.org, or really try to make sure you have all the information you need, because things are changing. There are different policies that are being challenged, and they vary state by state. Even in Pennsylvania, you have to have, in addition to having your ballot, filling out your ballot, putting it in an envelope, you have to have a secrecy envelope that you have to put it in as well, which is something that I think is only unique to Pennsylvania. But really, the point is that it varies state by state. So you want to make sure you have all the information you need, or you could be one of the ballots that were disqualified. Like Ziggy said, you definitely don't want to do that.
No, you do not. Thank you so much, Chris, for enlightening us about how to make sure that we're really prepared, whether we're voting in person or by mail. Like Chris said, I just strongly would so encourage everyone, search for your county's registrar of voters. That is your local election official, and look up what because often election regulations are county by county. So look up your county, see what your regulations are, and make sure that you are reading those directions and following those rules, because it's so important. But in addition to making sure that you yourself are prepared and ready and educated to go engage this election day, we also want to make sure that you're thinking about how can you amplify your vote and make sure that your friends and family are also ready for election day. I would say, you know, again, because this is so important, because young folks, I'll say it again, we have the lowest voter turnout rate, and yet I know that that does not match the sentiment of my generation, of Gen Z. So it's so important that we turn out. And I think one of the easiest ways to do this is to triple your vote, which is really just making a commitment to yourself that you talk to at least 3 of your friends or family, and walking them through making sure that they're also vote ready like you're going to be. So I do want to give a shout out to this really great program called Couch Party. It's being run by one of our partner organizations, All in Democracy Challenge. So what Couch Party is essentially, it's a program where you can text all of the contacts in your phone with a pre-written script and pre-written answers to make sure that they know what they're doing on election day, whether that's registering, requesting their absentee ballot, or making a plan to go vote in person. This is completely nonpartisan and totally free. They are doing a training tomorrow. If you want to learn more about how to actually engage in the Couch Party program, you can use your phone on the QR code, but we're also going to drop a link to the Couch Party toolkit in the chat. So that toolkit will also go over everything that you would get in tomorrow's training. And from that toolkit, you'll be able to sign up if you want to start you know, text banking your friends and family. Again, another great way to engage them is through those ballot parties that I mentioned earlier. So going through your ballot together. But I also want to give you y'all some tips and tricks for how to have those conversations, because I get it, it's hard, especially if you're talking to friends or family who, like, you might not necessarily agree with their politics, or maybe you're just like nervous to bring it up. I totally get it. So some of the ways that I like to start those conversations with people in my life is first just by starting it. You got to just dive in and do it, and kind of get over that fear hump. But I really started by talking about, why I care about civic engagement. What is the reason that I am bringing this up with you? And that can really draw people in, because you're being vulnerable. You're sharing that vulnerability with them, and why you really, really care. You don't know the answers to everything. And I think it's okay to tell your friends and family that. The mood should be that you can find answers together. But of course, I also think it's important when you're talking with them to ask them what they care about. Again, this is really similar to like the tactic I used at the start of today's training. You want to hear, and you really want to listen. That's a super important part, is to listen. What are the issues that they care about? Why do they potentially want to get involved? And you can listen to those answers and tie them back to why it's so important to engage. So if they say that they care about climate change, you could talk about, hey, our two representatives have divergent opinions on climate change. Like, let's talk about that and why your vote is so important to this. But of course, when you're talking to folks, you might get some pushback. That definitely happens, but it's okay. So these are some of the most common pushback points I've gotten from folks, and kind of how I like to respond to them. So first is that people are interested in activism, but they don't really care about voting. I would say that's something that I hear the most often. And what I like to say is, voting is not the start or the end of the conversation. We should be getting engaged civically before voting, and we should be getting engaged civically after voting. Because again, not everyone can vote. Not everyone meets those eligibility requirements, and that should never preclude anyone from being involved in their community and in civic engagement. Some folks are like, oh, my vote doesn't matter. Like, what is one vote? And that's where I go back. You're voting for more than just president. Not that your vote for president doesn't matter, but you're voting for those, 344 state Supreme Court, judge seats. So often, so many of those races are decided by one vote, a couple dozen votes, a couple thousand votes. And you being engaged in that election really is deeply important and can make a really big difference. Sometimes you'll hear folks, oh, God, I don't like the Democrats. I don't like the Republicans. And it's like, yeah, okay, you might be a no party preference voter, an independent voter, and that's totally fine. But voting is not a partisan activity. Voting is our responsibility as citizens, and it is a way for us to get engaged. And then, of course, some people might feel like voting is rigged. They don't trust in the system, they don't believe in it. And sometimes, those can be, valid concerns and coming from a real place. But I like to say, at the least, voting can't hurt. At the best, it can help. At the least, it's, it can't hurt. But really, as as young people, we want to encourage folks to vote because it does matter. Our votes do matter. They matter from president. They matter down to our local races. And it is really one of the few ways that we can truly make our voices heard, in our communities. So now that we've kind of given you all these tips and tricks, etc., I want to make sure that you have a voter plan to take away with you, and a resource to also share with your friends and family. So we just shared in the chat a link to this worksheet. Feel free to open that up, make a download of that. And I'd like to give folks maybe 3 minutes to actually go through that worksheet. When you see it, you're going to have a voter checklist. There's also, you can kind of go through like a yes, no, if this, then that, and actually fill this out. This is an editable PDF. You can save this, and then this can actually be your voter plan for election day. So I'll give everyone about 3 minutes, and then we will come back together for Q&A. So also, if you have any questions, please start populating them in the chat. but I'll play a little music for the next couple minutes while y'all do your voter worksheets. Well, I will bring us back together for some Q&A. I know some of y'all might not be done going through that worksheet, but that's okay. You have it as a resource. And again, feel free to save a clean copy, share that with your friends and family. Also in the email that you get after today's event, we'll make sure that that worksheet is attached. So if you didn't get it here, you'll get it there. But I want to shift it over to questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to populate them in the chat. So I see that we have one already from Juliet. So Juliet, if you're interested, I'm happy to, I just asked you to unmute if you want to ask your question to the whole group.
I think that my question kind of got answered with that worksheet, but I mostly just wanted to know if there was like a checklist so that I could like personally host something with my friends and family, people who are kind of already in my quarantine bubble is kind of what I use. But yeah, because I thought it'd be really cool to just kind of invite some friends and family that I've already kind of been in contact with to just like make sure that we all go through that checklist. So I just, yeah, you answered my question. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that we answered the question, that you have your checklist. But yeah, hosting a party like that sounds awesome. Do it with your pod. If you can do it in person, have some good food and drink. Always makes a party a little more fun. Did I see, Christian, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? I see a note here. You're unmuted if you want to ask to the, or you're able to unmute if you want to ask your question to the group.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Christy. And hello, everybody. My question is slightly technical in that many states, counties offer early voting, right? And with those ballots, there's like QR codes or some means to track the ballot. I don't know at all, but I'm curious if anyone knows, like, if the ballot is rejected for some of those reasons that were articulated earlier, can the voter find out about that and still have time to go to the polls on election day? Like, so the scenario is they send a mail-in ballot, it's rejected because of a signature, envelope, whatever, and they are aware, they can become aware of that and still go and cast a vote on election day.
Great. So I don't know, Chris, if you want to pop in, I'm happy to take it. But
I think that's a good question. I think it depends. I think that in some states that you do have time to correct certain things if you have already mailed in your ballot. Sometimes they will reach out to you, but I also would say, I preface that I feel like that is in probably a normal year, and then this is like a abnormal year where they're probably going to be, extremely overwhelmed. Who knows, if they will have time to circle back with people, and given some of the deadlines, that folks are facing and stuff. I don't know. I would say it would probably be hard pressed to see something like that. I don't know, Chrissy, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, so again, I think some of it is unfortunately state by state. I know that in California, like I signed up for text alerts and I truly got a text yesterday saying my ballot was mailed. And one of those text alerts is when my ballot has been accepted. So that would actually tell me if it had been rejected and I could contact my county registrar. The two things that I would recommend in this case, one, again, go to your county registrar's website. If you are, and then you can actually like call them, maybe email them to check in on the status of your ballot. Has it been received? Has it been accepted? If you're, really concerned about that. Again, some states or some counties might have an automatic thing like that where you can do it. My second point is that if you're at all worried about let's say you registered for a mail-in ballot and you didn't get it, or you're worried it was rejected, you can always go to a polling place on election day and request a provisional ballot. So that means that you're able to vote and your election officials will verify whether or not that kind of counts afterwards. So they look to make sure you're registered, that you didn't have another ballot or another vote come in, but you can always request a provisional ballot. Great. So Juliet asks, how do you get those text messages? If you go to sos.ca.gov, and then I think I found it on the homepage. So if you're in California, that's where you find it, the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is your state election official in state government. It is not like a foreign policy position. It's your election official at the state level. Hillary, I see that you have a question. Do you want to, we can unmute you as well.
Yeah, hey, thanks so much for putting this on, Christy. This is extremely helpful, and thank you, Christopher. Yeah, I was just wondering, there's a lot of new people getting on the ballot this year, but there's also a lot of incumbents. Any tips or resources for checking out incumbents' voting records so that we can check out how they voted in the past? Awesome.
Like
I see the chat. Thanks, Chris.
Just drop the link in the chat.
Perfect.
Yep, that's where you can track to see how people are voting on different issues. And again, I would plug Know Your Vote. That is a great, I'm not gonna, again, I'm not being paid by them to say this, but it's a really great resource that it's the only one I know that does it by issue area. So again, if there is a particular, or particular issues that you as a voter are passionate about, you can use their website and their portal to search your candidates and find what their positions are on those issues that you care about the most. Great. Do we have any other questions? I don't see anything else in our questions doc or in the chat.
So Jessica, if you request a mail-in ballot but don't receive it, can you vote in person?
Oh.
Is that a new? Yes. Is that a new one? Yeah, I don't know. I think like Christy was saying, you can go to your polling place and I know there's like a lot of things some people probably heard Trump say, go vote twice and do this and do that, but they have ways to see, the election official will go through and count everything and they'll be able to see what's going on. And so I don't think that you can get in trouble for doing something like that, because I think it's going to be something that probably a lot of people will have to deal with. But and if you go and you go to vote the day of and you've already sent in your mail-in ballot, and there won't be anybody there to like check it or like stop you. Of course you'll be able to go in and vote, but afterward they'll be able to see like what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, you could always request a provisional ballot. That is what they're called when you go in on election day and vote, but for some reason they don't either see you on the rolls or they're not sure. Yeah, you can always request that. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all so much. If you do have any other questions between now and election day, please feel free to reach out to me, cstanker@netimpact.org. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Truly, I want to get out the vote. I want everyone to vote because it's very important, as you see in the GIF here. So thank you all so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day and have fun voting. Oh, sorry, before we go, I forgot. We're going to ask, we have this short little poll. So if you can answer for some event feedback, we would really appreciate that. And Chris, if you want to say any goodbyes.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a nice day.